Today I'm going to showcase some Silver Age books that I picked up off of Whatnot. The Silver Age ran from the 1950s up to about 1970, and it's known for being a more innocent time as far as storytelling goes. A little bit corny, a little bit wholesome, but I would certainly be embarrassed if my mom walked in and caught me reading this.
Nathaniel, why is this door locked? You're not reading that Lois Lane in there, are you?
What? No, Ma, I ain't reading no Lois. I'm reading a Jimmy Olsen, I swear.
Don't you lie to me. I've got your Jimmy Olsen right here. I know you're reading it. I'm coming in.
Nah, don't come in here. Don't come in here, Ma. I don't want you to see. I think I need therapy. Welcome to Haul Yeah Comics. My name is Nate, and I have issues. Today's issues I got from Whatnot. They are all DC, and they are all Silver Age. But before I get into those books, I need to give a huge shout out and thank you to Ricky at All Sorts of Words. As I'm recording this, it was 3 days ago, Ricky invited me onto his channel to do a comic book hangout with him and Hagen from Lettuce Comics. We had a great time. I'll link the video below if you'd like to see it, but I was just blown away by his generosity. He doubled my subscriber count. And then through him, I was able to meet some other YouTubers who I have been watching for a while. So another shout out to Brandon at Mon Comics, to Martin at the Aussie Comic Book Collector, and Brian, Big B McFly, the comic guy. If you like comic book videos in general and you're not subscribed to one of these guys, please give their channels a chance. I think you'll like what you see. They're not only great YouTubers, but they're great people. So with that all said, thank you again, and let's take a look at some comic books. So first up, I've got Superman's Girlfriend, Lois Lane, number 73. This is from 1967. This cover, you know, so many times you see a Silver Age cover like this and you know that this isn't gonna really happen in the book, that this is just to get your attention and they're gonna do the story in a different way. This 100% happens in the book, and look, I'm not here to kink shame, all right? But this puppet is really into this. Lois is really into this. I'm not so sure about Clark down there. You know, he's chained up with kryptonite handcuffs. This particular story starts with an energy creature in space. He hitches a ride on an Earth probe back to Earth, where Lois, she has a little snide confrontation with Lana Lang. Lana's telling her that she's going to get the story out before Lois because Lana works for the TV station, and because Lois works for a newspaper, and newspapers are on their way out, Jack. Lois actually does a little bit of reporting here where she sneaks back, she breaks through the security. Now, of course, what happens is the creature takes over her body and makes her steal a Jeep where it's going to a water reservoir to do something to increase its force power. This is never mentioned again. The story is actually insane. The next thing that happens is that it enters Clark's body and it realizes that Clark has superpowers. So this is a new thing for the creature. Lois then has the picture that she took. The creature in Clark's body thinks that, oh no, what if she's got a picture of me, and then she's gonna show that picture. So creature as Clark takes the photograph and just sets it on fire in front of Lois. It's like one of the biggest jerk moves I've ever seen. And maybe it would be addressed, but conveniently and hilariously, the Daily Planet news chopper comes crashing through the building, piloted by Jimmy Olsen, who's a photographer, right? Like, why is he flying the helicopter in the first place? So Jimmy crashes the helicopter in, which makes Lois forget all about the picture that Clark burned up. Like 2 panels later, it just says, like as a little aside, like Jimmy was taken to the hospital. And then Perry, keep in mind that they just had a helicopter fly through their office building, right? Like where they make their newspaper. But Perry wants Clark to go judge this pretzel company's employee beauty contest. Can you imagine if your place of business did an employee beauty contest? I mean, it's insane. So the alien doesn't understand. This was really funny. The alien does not understand the concept of beauty. It doesn't know what's going on. And when it is looking at the employees, all of the women are very beautiful except one who looks so much like Miss Grundy from the Archie comics. And the alien decides he should pick the one that's the most unique. He's not picking based off beauty, so he picks the ugly girl, and it's a hilarious little moment in the story. Superman's able to use a weird vision power where he looks at a pile of ashes and can mentally reconstruct the picture that he burned earlier. Silver Age stories were always giving Clark powers that were just convenient for the moment, and this was definitely one of them. It's like super ventriloquism or something. So Clark sees that this creature is taking over bodies, and he comes up with this very convoluted way to trap it in a puppet. And he tells Lois that it's something to do with Kryptonian magic, and that she has to lash the creature while he is tied to a bed with kryptonite handcuffs. And the scene right from here is directly in the comic, and it's insane. So in the end, they're able to trap the creature inside this puppet head, and then he sends it into the Phantom Zone. And that's the end of that one. And that's just the first story, because then there's a backup story in this too, where Lois's fairy godmother shows up while she's working as a volunteer nurse at a hospital, which happens a lot for some reason. I mean, isn't she a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter? Why is she working as a volunteer nurse? How does she have any time? So that the backup story with the fairy godmother wasn't really that good, but in the end, it ends up being Mr. and Mrs. Pitlick's girlfriend slash wife, though she's not married to him at the time. They do this weird parallel where, and I am gonna butcher her name, so I'm not even gonna say it. I'm just gonna put it on text down here below. She is trying to get Mr. and Mrs. Pitlick to marry her the same way that Lois is trying to get Superman to marry her. So these two have like this, little foil relationship. And Lois tricks her into reading her name backwards by playing Scrabble. So it was nice to see Lois use her brain, and that was The Insanity of Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane, issue number 73. The next book I picked up is another Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane. This is issue number 43. In this one, we have Lois making goo-goo eyes at a sick man in an iron lung while she is his nurse, and Superman coming in looking pretty distraught in the back, and he makes a bunch of comments about Dr. Kildare and Ben Casey. I know that those are doctors from TV shows of this time, but I don't know much about it. This one has 3 stories in it. The first story wasn't very good, to be honest. It was about Superman dying because he got in a fight with Lex Luthor. But what stuck out in that particular story is the way that it started was the Jimmy Olsen fan club. It was a thing. The Jimmy Olsen fan club tries to get Lois to reenact Benjamin Franklin's kite string and key experiment. It's storming, it's lightning everywhere, and they've got a kite with a key on it, which is just stupid, right? Anyone knows that. Lois, again, Pulitzer Prize winning reporter, well, she goes ahead and does it. And she gets struck by lightning, but Superman flies in at the last minute and absorbs the charge. And then he calls her he calls her stupid, basically. He's like, "What? Your stupid harebrained scheme. You could have got yourself killed." And at the end of the issue, he says, Don't pull any more of your harebrained schemes, woman." Like, he's such a jerk. But when he's flying away, she says something like, "You can scold me all you want." There's a real vein of her just existing only to get him, and that's a weird part of these stories. The cover story is the second story, where Lois is a nurse, and she's a volunteer nurse at the hospital, and this guy's in an iron lung, and he falls in love with her, and he needs to get to Mexico, where the surgeon is that can do his surgery that will save his life. She convinces Superman to fly him down there. The whole thing was a scheme, because they had this iron lung. He's not even in it correctly because it's so full of stolen goods and art and gold coins and stuff. My favorite story in this one is actually the third story. Lana Lang and Lois are, I don't remember if it's a boat show or a beach, but they're there because they hope to catch a glimpse of Superman. Again, their only reason for existing in these books is that they both hope to one day marry Superman. Lana falls and hits her head, and she goes into a coma. And in her coma, she's dreaming about being married to Superman. And she's so happy that there's just no way for her to wake up. The doctor says the only way we're ever going to wake her up is if she's unhappy. So Superman and Lois conspire together to give her bad dreams. They tell her that Superman's secret identity is Clark Kent, so that she will fall out of love with Superman when she finds out that he's actually a big wiener. They concoct a story where Lana and Superman have a child, and the child is a brat who does things like bring polar bears into the Fortress of Solitude and make 50-foot tall snowmen that he then melts with his heat vision. In the end, what wakes Lana up from her happy dream is Lois puts in the subliminal suggestion that Superman is secretly still in love with Lois, even though he is married to Lana. And again, this one ends with both women longingly looking at Superman as he flies away and just hoping that they're going to be the one to get to marry him. More Silver Age insanity. Lois Lane, issue 43. So next up, I've got a Jimmy Olsen. Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, number 97. This one, as far as, stories go, I didn't really care for the second story that much, which a prince and Jimmy switching places, it wasn't that great. And the cover story is okay. Jimmy is at the Fortress of Solitude. Superman leaves him alone. Jimmy accidentally lets this villain out and then has to use the different weapons and items in the fortress to defeat the villain. It was pretty funny. And at the end, Superman's like, oh, you made a big mess for me to clean up, didn't you, pal? One of the reasons I really wanted to show this book was not because of the content of the book itself, but I had never seen this before. I thought this was so cool. This is an advertisement. This is an advertisement for the Batman movie from 1966. And it's right inside the front cover. I wonder if a lot of the books from this era, or from this particular month, this was October 1966, I wonder if a lot of the books had this ad in it. I have quite a few Silver Age books, and I don't think I've ever seen this particular poster. So I thought this was really cool to find. The back cover has another ad that I thought was really cool. Aurora hobby kits, where you could build the Batplane or the Batmobile. And please note the price of these models. They are 98 cents. And then in the very middle, keeping in mind 1966, these were the Saturday morning cartoons that were on at the time. I, as a kid, would watch in the 1980s a lot of Saturday morning cartoons, and I know that they existed in the 70s, but to know that in 1966 there was a Saturday morning cartoon lineup, I think is super cool. I am glad to add this book to my collection, but I'm probably a little more excited about the ads in the book, and that's a weird place to live. This is Adventure Comics number 356. This is 1967. And this one I picked up because it goes with my body horror and body transformation cover buying part of my collection. In this one, the Legionnaires are turned into little cute babies. The story here is that it's Parents' Day. All of the Legionnaires and their families, their parents, are on these Parent Day floats, and everyone in the city is clapping for them and cheering for them. So then the 5 Legionnaires who don't have families, who don't have parents because they're orphans, are left to basically do monitor duty. And they get a distress call from space that there is a crystal that powers an entire planet, and the Legion has to come and help them do something with it. When they end up picking it up, it has an effect on them that turns them all into babies, and they all forget about who they are. And they start doing that baby talk like, me want fly rocket. And it's really stupid. So then they get put in a super orphanage where Brainiac still has his brains. And they're all, this scene is kind of in there too, where they're pulling the rocket apart. Different people come to adopt all of them. In the end, it turns out there's this tragic story where this planet, all of the children died because of something that was in the atmosphere, and they were unable to have children. So they purposefully brought the Legionnaires and turned them back into babies so that they could have children again. And it's kind of sad, but also nefarious, right? And the Legion are known for being huge sticklers to their rules and their bylaws and things. Like if anybody does something outside the line, they get booted right out of the club. But in this case, like once it's discovered that they were purposefully babyfied and then put up for adoption, they're like, oh no, we won't charge you, no worries. Also, we solved your problem and your planet's fine. You can start having babies again. It was like, a classic trope, I feel like, of the Silver Age stories is you get to the end of the story and they wrap everything up in 2 or 3 panels, and this was one of those. And it was also very out of character for Legion stories that I had read. The backup feature is an old reprint of Lana Lang and Starboy being, I don't know, dating or something. It's something I had read before, and it was just a reprint. This story, however, it was okay. I'm glad I read it. I thought it was funny, but what I really am glad to have this for is that it fits so well into my body transformation cover collection. The last issue I want to talk about today is Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane number 54, The Monster That Loved Lois Lane. I want you to look at that face. Meet Herco. Herco, sadly, only appears in this issue. How could you let a character like this not come back? My friend Chubbs, Instagram linked below, he drew fan art of Herco just because I sent him a picture of this cover. Herco looks kind of like a Muppet. He looks like something that the Jim Henson Company would have come up with. Lois gets sent to cover a story about a scientist who opens up a new dimensional door. What walks through that door? Why, it's Herco. And he immediately captures Lois, and thinking she's about to be devoured by a monster from another dimension, her last thought, of course, is that I'll never see Superman again. I really wish Lois would get some agency. I wish Lois would, have a purpose for existing beyond just chasing Superman. I know it's a product of its time, but it really gets repetitive in these stories. So Herco becomes enamored with Lois, and they're walking through the city, and anyone that comes close, he has all these great expressions on his face where he just wants people to back off and leave his Lois alone. They go to a park where he sees a man give a woman flowers, so Herco rips a tree out of the ground to give to Lois. He sees somebody get a ring, so he tears down a street lamp and bends it into a circle. He goes to the zoo and opens up the cheetah cage, and in a very funny panel is throwing a cheetah at Lois Lane, thinking he's giving her a cute animal or a pet or something, and it's actually terrifying to her. So when Superman finally shows up to help, he doesn't really, try to figure the situation out. He just immediately starts swinging, and Herco wails on him because, like Huey Lewis before, Herco's fighting with the power of love. So the plan is they're going to get Herco back through his dimensional door by going to the scientist who's fixed his machine that Herco broke when he came through. Superman tells Lois to walk through the door, walk through this dimensional portal, and she thinks she's going to be stuck over there. She's like, oh, Superman must not love me because I'm going to be stuck in this other dimension forever. And at the very last second, Superman uses his vacuum breath, another convenient superpower that was just needed for this moment, and he sucks Lois through the portal, and then poor Herco is left all by his lonesome. And the last 2 panels of this are actually kind of heartbreaking. Herco standing there hugging this asparagus plant. I'm sure it's a Lois substitute of some kind. And then Lois, with tears in her eyes, saying that he's going to be waiting and waiting forever. But someday, she's going to open up that dimensional doorway and let him see her again. And sadly, that day never came. This was the only appearance of Herco, and I don't think that's right. It'd be so easy to bring him back. So, if anyone out there knows James Gunn or feels like harassing him with a hashtag or something, let's hashtag bring back Herco. Let's get it going. I think we deserve a world with Herco in it. So these were 5 books that I picked up on Whatnot. They were actually part of a much larger order, but I just wanted to spend a little more time with these because as I read them, I felt like they were really unique and worth talking about. I snipped a lot of pictures. I promise I'm not done doing just a bunch of random haul videos. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at 3 or 4 piles back there on my table of shame right now, and I'll get to those eventually. Thank you for sticking around to the end. Please give the video a like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to check below because there are a lot of great comic book YouTubers out there, and I really think you'll enjoy the channels that I've linked to below. Thank you again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Itch my nose. And I don't remember how it ends. Oh yeah, bit